organizers, and as well, especially Abby Ross, our local campus organizer here for helping with this great tour. Well, I'm just going to get a little bit geekier and a little bit drier with you here and talking about the health effects. Where's the down? Oh, there it is. All right. We've all seen pictures of these birds that it breaks our heart to see how ill they are, and most of them will die probably, but it will break our heart to know that people like this also are at risk. Anywhere there's a pipeline, people are at risk. And we've also already heard from Chris tonight, who had a terrible direct experience with this. First of all, I think we all know this, but it's worth reminding ourselves that tar sands and diluents, the things that dilute the tar sand so it can even push itself through the pipeline, are not a natural part of the above ground environment. They're supposed to stay in the ground. Fossil fuels are supposed to stay in the ground, and that's what tar sands should stay. Also, we all know that tar sands sink. That's what made Kalamazoo one of the things that made it so disastrous, but as well, there's a recent report showing that to clean up every barrel of tar sands at Kalamazoo was about $29,000 compared to $2,000 per barrel for regular crude oil. An enormous difference here. So every tar sands pipeline poses special risks there. So you want to think, well, how much risk does it pose? And I'm a clinician, and I used to take care of patients before I retired. So I think about risks and benefits. I think about that balance there. And there has to be with any new drug or any new technique, new surgical technique or whatever. But of course, pipelines aren't like that because they're all risk, basically, and no benefit. The long-term risks are really hard to figure out because there is no data out there. There's very little data. The best evidence is from people and animals who've actually gotten exposed themselves. But who's collecting this evidence properly? Who is studying this? And the answer is almost no one. And you want to ask, why not? Well, money has a lot to do with it. There is a need for unbiased information, unbiased studies that will gather all the data that's necessary so that we can really know what's going on in terms of the health risk, because I think that's something that's going to engage the public's interest in tar sands, knowing what risk it can pose to them and their family. We understood a long time ago that the diluting factor, the diluents that are mixed with tar sand so it'll go through a pipeline, are proprietary. But when we asked Enbridge, as part of our Dane County efforts to reveal what is in it, to our surprise, they came out right away and told us everything that was in it. And I've given a reference in your hand well, there are several references, but I'll give you references where you can actually find that. It's on the Dane County website. But what I've given you here is just a list of a lot of them. And you'll notice I've highlighted benzene, which is quite a dangerous chemical, and people suspected it was there, but there wasn't any real proof, but now we do have that proof. I want to remind you all that sometimes at the bottom of the slide I'll have written a URL or a reference or something like that. These slides are available to all of you, and all the references I have, all the URLs, as well as journal articles that you might not otherwise be able to get. If you're interested, let me know. I'll be happy to send you the PDF. Well, benzene is very volatile, and because diluents make up about a quarter of what's in the pipeline, there's a lot of evaporated poisons, including benzene, if there is a tar sand spill, as there was in Kalamazoo. It's a known carcinogen. It's been known to be a carcinogen for quite a while. It is a teratogen, causes birth defects. I actually used benzene myself in the lab before it was quite realized how dangerous it was, and I think I got away with it, but I wasn't using huge quantities there. It has acute effects as well as chronic effects. The acute symptoms, which is all that the Michigan Department of Community Health seemed to be wanting to kind of gather, the acute effects occur, and they can affect your eyes, your breathing, you can get nauseous, headaches, etc. And you can see from the red on the left, 42% of the people had symptoms, and in a comparison area that was farther away from the spill, most of them, 96%, didn't have any of the listed symptoms. But a lot of people who are in the red column, almost an eighth of them had 4+ symptoms. So definitely it has acute effects. But what really bothers people very often more is the fact that there can be very dangerous chronic effects. I think it's worth looking at other disasters because some of the diluents that are used in the tar sands pipeline, some of those same chemicals are going to be present in the BP spill. And as well, when you find that you have a spill such as in the Gulf where they use dispersants to kind of make it look like it's disappeared, that stuff itself is very dangerous. And people don't know enough about dispersants. But there is accumulation of heavy metals in fish, risk from eating fish over the long term wherever the spill occurs. For people who have more intense and long-term exposure, people living in the industrial tar sands where you're actually getting rid of that overburden, longer and greater exposure to these toxins, including benzene and other agents, have provided elevated rates of blood cancers and solid organ cancers. It's good to know that some people are minding the store. For example, Senator Boxer has highlighted the risk of tar sands, and there was a recent NRDC study which talked about health effects of a dirty and destructive fuel. And I've given you a couple of references there where the National Academy of Sciences is doing something along these lines to look at the risks of tar sands, particularly in Alberta. Tar sands crude oil, this is part of their study. There's damaged water supplies. They have more people subject to cancer and genetic damage, increased methylmercury, and there are rising cancer rates in First Nation communities. There's some physicians who are interested, and in particular an Alberta physician is calling for more investigation. But as you might imagine, there's not that much money in doing that kind of thing. I think this is my last slide, risks and benefits. Well, what are the benefits? People talk about energy independence, but there was a brand new report that came out from an industry rag, basically, from the Bentex Market Alert. I just saw it the other day, and it said exports are our last demand standing. In other words, there's a lot of inventory for petroleum liquids. There's not going to be that much demand. There's a massive oversupply at current production levels. So they're not going to stop digging it up, but they're looking at unrestricted exports of crude, providing the last significant source of demand. So it's outright, it's out there. People are not, pussyfooting around about energy security. They're now basically saying, we're going to dig it up however we want. We're going to push it through your country, and we're going to export it, and you can't do a damn thing about it. So I want to join Chris and other people in saying, yes, we can do a damn thing about it, and that's what we're going to do.